Hey there everybody, Brian here with Airtable Ninja. I'm going to show you real quick how to combine fields together into one field in case you wanted to do that. And we're going to do that using the formula field and a couple of different operators or functions that are available to us in the formula field. So a good example of this is if you were to have a database or some kind of a table tracking people, right? You can be tracking them because it's your personal address book, or perhaps it's a CRM and you're tracking your clients or maybe your vendors. And so for this example, what we're going to do is we're going to take this field where we have the first name, middle name, last name of somebody, and then all these different fields for their address. And we're going to combine that their address fields into one and make it kind of an address block the way it would be on an envelope if you were to print an envelope or write it down. So the first thing we're going to do is I created this sample here with all these fields. They're all just single line fields. There can be any combination of fields if you have something different, but that's fine. And what I'm going to do is create a field that is a formula. So I have this one called full address, and we're going to select formula. Okay. And the cool thing with Airtable is that if in the formula field you can put in any field and it'll just print that field into that formula. So for instance, with this very first column for the address, we have street address. If we just type in street address, and once we start typing, it shows up at the bottom. We can just click on it. We don't type the whole thing. Hit save. You can see that it shows in this field anything that's in here. It's just basically saying this equals this. So this equals this, and this equals that, all in the same row, right? And there's an operator called the AND symbol, right? And what that'll do is that'll allow us to put more information after that field. So if we put and we put in the apartment unit number, and we hit save, now you can see it shows this field and this field together. But you see how they're smushed together? That's because we didn't tell the formula we wanted a space between them. So adding a space is adding what they call a string. So it's just it could be any type of text or number or punctuation, just about. So we need to tell it that we want a string between there. So what we would do is to put in a string, we just put in a parenthesis, or I'm sorry, a quotation mark, and then we would put in whatever we want is that string. In this particular example, we're going to use space, and then we put in another quotation mark, and we need to put another and symbol because what we're saying is, we want to show the street address and space and the apartment unit number. So we hit save, and now you see there's a space in between those. But that wouldn't be the appropriate first line, so we probably want to have a comma in there, correct? So now when we look at this, it's 123 Main Street, apartment 3B. But what happens if we have an address that doesn't have a second line? Oh man, it's still showing a comma. So what we should probably do is maybe put that comma in an if statement to say if this exists, then show that comma. Otherwise, don't show the comma. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all of this out right up to this very first quotation mark. Okay, and we're going to put in that if statement. So we're going to show the street address and if, and only if, and if apartment or unit equals nothing, meaning it's blank, we want it to do nothing. So our true statement is do nothing, say nothing, right? And if it's not blank, meaning there is something in there, then we want you to show comma, space, and show the apartment unit number. Okay, and then we hit save. And now you can see for this example, the first address line, we have 123 Main Street, apartment 3B with the comma, everything looks good. And then in this example where there is no unit number, it's just the one line, the comma is no longer there. Because this is empty, so it's saying do nothing. So now we need to put in our second line, which would is typically in the U.S. anyways, city, state, and postal code. So we'll go and edit this again. And so now we have our first line. We also want to say and show the city, state, and postal code. And we need to put a string in here as well. And this time we're not putting in a space. We want to put in a line break. We want this to show up on another line. And in Airtable, the way we do that is we say \n. and that tells it that we want a new line, basically. And that's going to be as well as a string, just like a space, so you want to put that in quotation marks. So now we have that in our next line. We have to say and. In addition to that line break, we want to show city. Okay. And after the city, we want to show the state. But before we show the state, of course, we want to have that space between them. And typically in the U.S., we want to actually put a comma after the city. So we'll put comma, and then a space. And after the space, we want to show the state. And after the state, we want another space between the state and the postal code. And so after that space, we'll say and we want the postal code. And now when we hit save, you'll see that we have a full address ready to go. And for this particular one where we don't have that apartment or unit number, suite number, it's blank. It's just a regular address. And we can also go through and put their full name in there above that address if we wanted to. And let's actually talk about the names a little bit. So let's say that we want to track our people by first, middle, and last name. We want those to all be separate fields. That way we can use them different ways if we need to. So for instance, when I send out an email through Zapier from a record in Airtable, I'll say, hey Joseph, you know, and I wouldn't be able to do that if the first and last name are in the same field. It would say, hey Joseph Sample. So I always like to keep them separate because you can always combine them later, but it's a lot harder to break them apart. So I try to keep things as segregated as possible. But let's say we wanted a field with the full name. Well, we're going to follow suit just like we did with the address here. And we're going to go through and edit this, and we're going to say this needs to be a formula. And we want it to show the first name. Okay. And we want a space after the first name, before the first name and the last name. And after the space, and last name. And when we hit save, you'll see now we have their full name in one field. Another cool thing here, since we do have a middle name, we can also do something to extract the middle initial automatically. So let's go ahead and call this middle initial. And I am anal about capitalization, even though this is an example. I'm going to fix that. So this is going to be a formula. And there are some cool functions for the formula, including one that's called left or right. So if you just start typing left, you'll see it pops up here. And what this does is it says, okay, let's go from the left and figure something out. So in this example, you'll see that it's saying quick brown fox 5. So what that means is that out of this string, from the left, go 5 characters. And the answer would be Q-U-I-C-K, because that's the first 5 characters. We don't have to use a string in here. We can use a field, and that's just what we're going to do. So we're going to say from the left of middle name, show me 1 character. And that's going to be their initial, their first one. And when we hit save, we can see now we have their middle initial. So if we wanted to use their middle initial in their full name, what we can do is add it here. So first name, and we need to put another space in because we want there to be a space between the first name and the middle initial, and middle initial, and typically we would have a period after that initial, so I'm going to pop in right there and drop a period in there, last name. So now we see that in this example here, Joseph M. period Sample, and that's their full formal name. But look at Gerald. Gerald doesn't have a middle name. And he's still got that period. So we have to do something kind of similar that we did when we had to filter out this apartment unit number for Mary here, who didn't have one. Okay, we're going to put in an if statement. So what we're going to say is, we're going to take that part out. Okay, we're going to take out that period too. We don't want that to show up yet. So we want the first name, and if they have a middle initial, and if middle initial is nothing, then do nothing. Otherwise, we want to see a period. No, I'm sorry. We want to see the middle initial. Not miss. Middle initial and a period. And then, after that middle initial, or no middle initial, there will be a space and a last name. So when we hit save, now we can see that this looks messed up because I forgot a space. So let's go through and fix that real quick. If there's a middle initial, do nothing. If there isn't, so we need to say we need a space in here. Okay, and the middle initial. Okay, that'll fix that. That was my mistake. I forgot to put the space in between the first name and the middle initial if there was a middle initial. I know I'm going kind of fast, so if you have any questions, please do email me, brian@airtable.ninja, and I will help you out the best I can. But now we can see that when in the instance that there is a middle name, there will be a middle initial with a period, and in instances when there's no middle name, it's just the first and last name, and that's automatically generated. So if we found out that Gerald's middle name was, Ben, that now it's Gerald B. Henry. Okay, and so that's a quick little tutorial on how to, combine multiple fields to kind of automate some things, so that if you needed this information, it's there. It's easy to get to, but you don't necessarily have to type in every single field to get to it. You can automatically combine multiple fields. Again, if you have any questions, brian@airtable.ninja, or visit me online at airtable.ninja. Thanks.